Hello, another beautiful day in paradise here in Columbia, Missouri. We have an amazing guest on today. Her name is Maria Crisler. She's going to be popping on here momentarily. We're going to do a deep dive with Maria. I've already had her on actually before, and she's like a parasite expert. She has a wellness company as well. I'll let her do her own introduction, but today it's a very unique topic and something that is personally a big passion of mine right now in terms of my own research and application on in my own self-care, my own wellness practices, and that's parasites and detoxing nanotech. So I have a really unique guest on today who's going to help me deep dive into this. Okay, Obey Two Naturals. Is that her? Do I add as a moderator? No, I gotta invite her like this. Here we go. Okay, Maria, invited you. So she should be popping on now. Here she is. Hi,
Hi.
Maria. Good morning.
Good morning. How's it going?
Oh, it's been a great day so far. Did a sauna this morning, got some work done.
Yeah.
The sun is shining here in Missouri.
Yeah.
And I've been super excited about this live actually for a while because I was just telling everybody before you came on that this has become one of my central passions in terms of research is parasites and nanotech.
Yeah.
And I knew about it sort of on the periphery, and I knew it was something that I was going to come to and like get into, but it was really your meeting you at the biohacking conference last summer that catalyzed my interest in it, and that led to this journey of doing what has now become like an 8 month continuous parasite cleanse with some of your guidance, and we're going to talk about that and some other stuff. So
Yeah.
but before we get into that, this is going to be an amazing deep dive. We only have like a little less than an hour, so we're going to try to be real efficient here with things, but there's a lot of stuff to go over. So first, I'd like to introduce you to everybody, Maria, or if you could introduce yourself. What is your
Yeah.
background? Tell us about your company, Abetu, and how maybe a little bit of how you got into your own obsession about parasites.
Yeah. I have a clinical background in parasites, and I I never loved it. I mean, it's gross, right? So parasitology, I mean, when I went through college many moons ago, we had to identify eggs, in their different stages and whether or not they were fertilized to figure out if they were male or female and, what they would look like. I mean, it was really pretty horrifying. And in college, we had to actually take in a stool sample. So I'm young, I want to be pretty and like, I don't want to carry around my own stool. So, I did this and come to find out, I mean, I was asymptomatic, but I fished, I lived in the outdoors, I camped, I grew up in New Orleans, and then Southern Illinois and then Wyoming. And I was the only person in class who was positive for Giardia. I mean, we had to
Mm.
do our own testing. And I thought, well, that's weird. I don't I don't feel anything, but of course I was mortified, right? Because if you have parasites back then, if you have parasites, well, you must be utterly disgusting. So,
Yeah, yeah,
even
that's
though,
a third world
yeah,
problem, right? It's we don't deal
everybody
with that
has
here.
them, horrifying, right? So, I mean, I'm a young mom and I was horrified about myself. So I ignored it because I thought, the test was probably garbage. And but that actually fueled a thesis that I did. I did some work on fetal hemoglobin when I was in college. I did some work on SIDS. I did some work on parasites. And I came across this story about what was called a sandbox killer. And this baby who had been playing in a sandbox with, one of her relatives was actually, she was dead within a week. Family was
Mm.
visiting another family down south, and cousins, and then went back to Michigan or wherever, Michigan, Wisconsin, something like that. They go back home, and within a week, the baby had a fever, had liquid coming out of her ears, and then ended up dying within a week, going into a coma and dying. Upon autopsy, realized that she actually had a roundworm infection, a Scarus lumbricoides infection. So sometimes these eggs, even though they'll live, go from your lungs or burrow into your heels or your tissues, go maybe from your intestines even into your organs. This is very, very common, but they're supposed to, their life cycle goes from the lungs up the esophagus down into the stomach. When you swallow or sneeze or cough or anything like that, it's typically larvae. So this is their life cycle. You can imagine that sometimes they take a wrong turn or something happens and they end up where they're not supposed to be. So the majority of people out there actually will have, parasites in their sinus cavity. That's what a lot of sinus problems are. That's what bronchitis is, and when you have, I know that in the laboratory, we would test for, I was in microbiology, and we would test for these things, right? And, plate and grow these different things and sputums and stools and urines and things like that. But if you have an overgrowth of a certain bacteria, it is because of a dysbiotic relationship typically between parasites and your microbiome. And whenever you have a good ratio, whenever you have this in control, you don't have a problem with microbes. I mean, microbes are our friend, right? So, and this is a misconception that people have.
Yeah, and let me interject and say that after I began my parasite cleanse, I put my father on it, and he grew up. My grandfather was in the Army. He was an engineer involved in the missile silo upgrades and bases across the Pacific. So my father grew up in all these different island places in Japan and Kwajalein, and he also did his residency for radiology in Africa. So he had a very, let's say, a vivid experience with his parasite cleanse from the beginning. But my point is, he had recurring sinus symptoms and sinus infections since he was a teenager. Yeah. And so that's been plaguing him for like 50 or 60 years. And 3 or 4 weeks into this parasite cleanse that he started, his sinus symptoms for the most part completely went away, and they've been gone since then, where literally for decades they just come and go for him. So I completely agree with what you're saying. Like, it seems like, and I wanted to talk a little bit more about that. Like, what are the symptoms and the things that we experience that we mistakenly attribute to bacteria or viruses or maybe allergic responses, but are in fact at their core coming from a parasite, parasites in the body that shouldn't be there. Sinus is definitely one.
You know what? I'm glad you mentioned allergies and allergic reactions, because a lot of times people will start something or they'll eat something and say, I can't do that. I'm allergic to it.
Yeah.
We're in development. I'm working with Dr. Edward Group from Global Healing.
Oh, yes.
So I'm sure your audience knows him. And I'm a lead microscopist for some things that we're doing, some deep dives that we're doing on, parasites, nanotechnology. And I mean, by parasites, I mean all kinds of parasites. I mean energetic parasites, electromagnetic frequencies, like all kinds, anything that takes your energy or lives off of you or harms you, in a predatory manner. So I'm working on people to expand their definitions, but the organic.
Wait. That was a lot in a little bit. We need to unpack that. So the definition of a parasite is not just a roundworm or a tapeworm or like an amoeba or something. Yeah. Parasites include anything that's sucking energy off of us. Yeah. And so electromagnetic stress, energetic, maybe even energetic, spiritual, emotional type energies, and
people. Yeah.
And people as well.
Yeah. I mean,
I definitely have known a few parasites in my life.
100%.
Yeah.
Good riddance. But you know, when we talk about cleansing and we're talking about allergic reactions, and let's expand that a little bit and include certain energies, you know, including people. You know, we all contain this aura about us, and you want to hope that you don't attract the wrong ones, but sometimes, you know, I mean, energies attract, right? And so you really have to be conscious about your state of mind and being, you know, overall, because parasites don't have to come in necessarily just in organic form. As a matter of fact, we're seeing more hybrids. We're seeing more hybrid forms than anything. So I'm getting ready to do this talk in Dallas where you and I get to visit again in person, and I will make sure that we are starting to expand the definitions. But going back to the allergic responses, a lot of times, like, you might think that you're allergic to a banana or watermelon or even papaya, right? And these are something that these are things that parasites do not want you to eat. They don't like them. They don't like the seeds, right? Watermelon seeds. When I eat watermelon, I actually eat the seeds. I don't have a problem, you know, with that. They just come right out in one piece, but the parasites don't like the film that's around the seeds.
So we have to be conscious and understanding. Oh, if I don't feel good after I eat watermelon, it's because the parasites are having a stress response to what we're eating, because it's killing them, it's hurting them, and it's making us feel bad. So if we're conscious of that, you know, it's not actually you're not allergic to watermelon. It's the parasites that are allergic to watermelon.
100%. Used to be where I used to love chlorella, right? Taking it when I was younger, and I've always been kind of a health nut, and I'd work out like 6-7 days a week. You know, I was the type of person I was failing if I worked out, you know, 5 days. That was a big failure. And so really sort of militant about, you know, the way that I treated my body, and always very health conscious. And I couldn't eat or I couldn't take chlorella, and it sent me into, my liver would just spasm. I mean, really, really hurt. And I thought, gosh, you know, what is going on here? We were developing this microsomal formula binder that does have a little bit of chlorella in it. And, you know, I had told Dr. Group, I know what's going on here because I've had a problem with this, and I'm sure that the liver flukes are really mad. But the first 2 times I took it, I mean, I was doubled over pretty good. And I'm not telling people to ignore, you know, their symptoms, because of course, you know, it could not be a Herx response. It could be something else. But I know my body well enough, and I just kind of pushed through it. The 3rd time I took it, I was great. And I had liver flukes. I mean, I definitely, even as much as I remediated, you know, doing and testing our new microsomals, I had still an issue, and now the chlorella is fantastic. Like, I love it. So
Yeah, it's a good reminder. Everybody here, when we're on the healing path to remember our unlimited nature and heal our bodies, we always need to keep in mind what is our intuition saying to us, and what do we actually need. Particularly in a parasite cleanse, I'm you know, I'm like a fire sign. I'm more pitta than vata. I don't really have gut issues.
yep.
So I was able to, you know, get on this cleanse and actually increase to a more advanced level with just higher doses of these herbs that we're taking, and seeds that are expelling the parasites. But I know that there's some people who have to be really careful, and they're overly sensitive, and it's very different person to person. So we need to be paying attention. Yes, this may be a very much Herx reaction to a die-off of parasites, and it's probably not an allergic reaction, but you know, you're always paying attention. And when you do a parasite cleanse, you can back off if the symptoms are too intense. What we're trying to say here is these symptoms, these sort of detox reactions that you get during a parasite cleanse, are known, and they're most likely because of the parasite die-off, and you know, there's a wisdom and understanding that comes with that's a part of the journey, and that's okay. But balancing that with knowing your body and knowing if it's getting to be too much, you know, backing off or paying attention. You know, it's not one size fits all on this parasite cleanse stuff.
You know, and getting back to like bowels, right? So I know that a lot of people, and when you and I were talking, like a year ago, we're talking about bowel movements, and you're kind of looking at me like, is she for real? Are we really having this conversation? And but the thing is that people who have and are regular and have regular bowel movements think that they're okay. And that is a very common misconception, because you're definitely not clear of these things. So, our bowels are swollen. Another common question that comes up is, why don't they see these things on colonoscopy? That's probably the most common question. Why don't doctors see this? And why aren't they talking about this? My business partner's an MD. They don't get nutritional education in medical school. You mentioned your dad, radiologist, same thing, right? With my business partner, they don't get that education. You know, it's a specialized education to learn about these things. And I know that she's recently started reporting seeing, parasites in the brain, parasitic cysts in the organs, and things like that, getting back to the old school from which they came from, and starting to really talk about these things more, tumors, what's surrounding them, what do they look like, what do they actually look like on imaging? Do we have a cyst that's involved that's actually a parasitic egg?
Yeah, they don't, but let's talk about that. So yeah, conventional medicine's not really talking about parasites. Even in integrative, functional, natural medicine, there's a lot of docs don't even talk about. I mean, you have to find someone who has done the research and the awareness and of it. But once you do that, you see that. Let's talk about that. Like perhaps in the disease equation or the health equation, parasites could possibly be maybe the biggest contributing factor to all disease, because what we see in the research is that when people do a parasite cleanse, they're resolving major systemic dysfunction, advanced chronic illness, and other things like skin issues and so many things.
Urinary tract infections,
All these things, like you're when you address the parasites, you're taking this huge burden off the body, and all these other things that you might have thought you had as symptoms or diseases or whatever tendencies or conditions could resolve at this really first order level. And so there's this really compelling argument to address the parasites first, instead of going and taking antibiotics for strep throat, or using a steroid cream for a skin problem, like so can we talk about that a little bit? Like, are parasites really the biggest problem?
So I will share with everybody a personal story. I had a structural, out of nowhere, a structural abnormality with my left renal vein about 2013, 2014. So I had an auto kidney transplant. I had to move it because, my left renal vein had been clamped down on by two arteries. I was too thin. Like I said, I worked out, and I thought I ate a lot, but I was just being me. And, doctors, of course, said, you're too thin. You don't have any stomach fat. And you've changed the angle of these vessels, and now they're clamping down. So, I said, well, just take the kidney. And I had some really good doctors that said to me, we're not going to do that. You're way too active, and you're going to need both of your kidneys. You're going to need them. And I thought, geez, that's like a 13-hour surgery. I don't really want to go through that. But I mean, how dangerous is that? That's a lot of anesthesia. And I'm a lightweight and allergic to those things. So I fast forward to 6 years later or so, or even last year when we were at that conference together. I got sick in Phoenix, and I had what I determined to be a weaponized E. coli that had a plasmid promoter put in it for antibiotic resistance. Now, I have a microbiology background. That's part of my background. And I fought pretty hard to try to figure out what was going on with me. This was a year ago, and I had 12 straight kidney or UTIs, 12 months straight. they would not resolve. I could not get this resolved, and I'm pretty intelligent. I used terpenes because I started attacking the E. coli that had been placed, had an antibiotic resistance promoter put in it. And this would be, it's not controversial. It is a fact. The NIH documents it. And it took me a lot to figure this out, to figure out what was going on with me. But I had to use antibiotics as a rescue, which I would never, ever do, right? I couldn't figure out what was going on. So between this E. coli, and I did parasitic remediation, you know, once, twice a year type of thing, heavy metal remediation. I mean, I was pretty well behaved and very knowledgeable, or so I thought. I decided to get really aggressive with, you know, the things that I knew, and really start to go after the parasites. And I haven't looked back since. Not one infection, not one. So, you know, when people talk about, I'm going to go get an antibiotic for this without trying to, you know, resolve what's actually going on, I used terpenes and out they came. I mean, out they came. So I was actually shocked at the things that I was seeing, and I was really kind of upset. But I was really going after the weaponized bacteria and the weaponized yeast.
Yeah.
So I was.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about the weaponized, sort of these modern parasites. But real quick, we got a question.
Okay.
Oh, it looks like it disappeared. But there's a couple questions in the comment. One of them was, are fungi parasites as well?
They can be, because they feed off of your tissue and they damage the host. So by definition, yes. And same thing with some microbes.
Yeah, so we like to eat mushrooms for functional mushrooms for benefits, but there's other types of fungus out there that are quite damaging to the body. And in a balanced body that's optimal and the immune system's working right and it's not overloaded with heavy metals, those parasites, they can't take hold because we're high frequency, and our body's natural immune elimination systems keeps them out.
Yeah.
So
and you know, here's another thing.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
With the immune system, just so people understand too, you know, parasites are highly intelligent, you guys, and they have what we call immune modulatory, you know, chemicals that are released. So they will mimic maybe your white blood cells, and they release these chemicals so that your white blood cells think that, oh, you know, somebody else has already taken care of this fight, or this is my brother. Right?
Yeah, that's devious.
So
and they also have a relationship with heavy metals, where I learned this from you, that they hide from the immune system with heavy metals. They consume heavy metals for so
I call it the anchoring effect. They will anchor to these heavy metals. They feed off of them. You know, I've had conversations with Dr. Group about some of these, you know, more strange hybrid types, and you know, he'll say what's the main food source, and for this one in particular, well, heavy metals. For others, you know, sugar, obviously. For others, it's actually a low vibration or frequency. So they're all going to attach differently, but for the most part, they all like the heavy metals, because what does that do? That actually lowers the pH of your body, so of your interstitial fluid. And this is where they thrive. So they want you not to be alkaline. They want you to be acidic. That's also where the heavy metals come into effect. And then the heavy metals will also lower the frequency, like say, of your immune cells, of your red blood cells, of your immune cells, and make the membranes more penetrable so that they can come in and out. We have extracellular and intracellular organisms that, you know, back in the day used to be normal, where we could look at a live blood smear and say, this looks like a normal relationship, you know, or this one is fluorescing a little bit. I'm going to predict cancer within 3 months, like ahead of radiology. So, you know, this all used to be common practice, even, you know, right before I became a professional, you know, under the microscope. So, but I knew about these practices, right? And we had some of the training. But yeah, for the most part, anytime you are going to try to get rid of parasites, you want to make sure that you're attacking the heavy metals at the same time, because not only do they
Mm-hmm.
lower your vibration, they take your pH down and they make a very habitable environment for all things.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that here in a little bit, like remediation,
Yeah,
detox. Of course, SaunaSpace is involved in
yeah,
that. There is one
yeah.
more question I think is interesting, so I'm going to click on it, tap on it. I
Okay.
think tap question answer. There we go. So brain body collective. For 20 years, my sister has struggled with Candida under her breasts. Could the Candida be caused by parasites?
Yeah, so she's loaded. Um, it's really difficult to get rid of Candida. One thing I did when I was helping Dr. Group with this formulation was we wanted to make sure that, you know, he's such a phenomenal human being because he listens, right? And he's an amazing collaborator, you know, so he will, and he loves the technology and he wants to find the solutions, right? So I said, you know, and he had been spoken to about the terpenes, you know, by others as well. And so that when I came in and pretty much doubled down on it and said, this has to be a thing because this is what I can prove they're doing. Candida do not like the terpenes. And when I talk about the terpenes, I'm talking about, you know, like the byproducts of pure pine needles and rosemary, right? Plants like that that have,
Hmm.
you know, a special structure to their plant, and they contain these terpenes that ward off pests. And what we did was, or what he did was, he extracted specific terpenes in certain ratios that we developed in this one formula. Things that we know that parasites don't like, but also things that we know that Candida does not like. So if somebody's having a hard time when you're going through detox, and you know we all know this, your brain isn't necessarily just you, right? They think for you. They give you these cravings. They tell you what to do. They tell you what to eat, and that's, I mean, Candida is really notorious for that, and it proliferates faster than just about anything. So going through the detox, you know, when we get these terpenes out and we get this formulation out, Candida can't handle it. They cannot handle it. You know, you probably will react. You'll have different things going on in your brain, and some people have, you know, some really spiritual experiences, but emotional disturbances because things are a little bit haywire, right? Because the
Yeah,
terpenes are killing
and
everything.
and we talk about that in the sauna world as well. You know, detox is a journey where you have, we call these healing reactions or detox reactions or retracing reactions. You can experience the symptoms of a toxin as it's being detoxed, and if it, and not just the symptoms but the memories, and if the time in which you incorporated the toxin has a memory that's actually overlapping, and this is a little complicated in your brain, in the neural network patterns with a limbic memory, which is a very strong emotional memory. This is the same reason why when you smell something it reminds you of your high school prom or whatever. It's
Yeah.
the memories are actually interlinked in the brain, and the limbic emotional memories are the strongest. So all that to say that you can be detoxing something and all of a sudden you get really emotional, or you start crying, or you feel dense or whatever, and it's not related to where you are,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not even related to, it's related to some emotional autonomic nervous stress maybe that you've been holding for a long time that now you're releasing. So the detox reactions are just so profound sometimes, spiritually and emotionally, not just physically with rashes and things like that, or with being sleepy or whatever. So that's just a part of the journey. And when you're detoxing parasites, same thing. You have all of that stuff that's involved. So I want to get back to these man-made, weaponized, or man-made parasites. I think it's a fascinating subject that not many people know about.
Yeah.
Real quick though, this person Turbo919755 says, I've been suffering from Raynaud's disease
Oh.
for 15 years. Any relation to parasites? I'm a daily SaunaSpace user.
And I'm guessing the SaunaSpace is actually helping a little bit. Raynaud's is interesting, and I've never put that connection together with parasites, but if you weren't born with it, and this is key for everybody, if this isn't something that you were born with, and if this is something that came on, say, after your glutathione levels start dropping, right, in your mid to late 30s, and you have certain hormones and micronutrients that just stop dropping or start dropping with age, or if you are experiencing heavy electromagnetic frequencies, or you went through some move, think about things like that, because anything that can dysregulate your system, including parasites, is contributing to that. So like you were saying earlier, if you start detoxing from the inside out, and I stress, please, from the inside out, not the coffee enemas, not shoving things up and trying to force things out, because that is not the right way to detox. You're not ever going to clean yourself from the outside in. It doesn't work that way. So I stress that, but
Yeah.
So, and Turbo said that it did start in the 30s. So I would start to look for micronutrient deficiencies. It's really, not, it seems like it would be a circulatory problem, but it's not necessarily a circulatory problem. It's more kind of a neurological, like a combo. So I would try to re-regulate the system, start detoxifying the body, so that you have a smart body. It's why I work with microdosing, right? Because all we want to do is flip a switch. We don't need to saturate anything. We don't need to overdo anything. We just need to give our body a fighting chance, clean it out, and your body will start solving your problems for you. And I truly believe that, because it's been how I've lived my life. And every single time, I see a success.
Yeah. So Turbo, I'm not a healthcare provider, but I have been using the SaunaSpace longer than anybody out there, over a decade. And I still was very surprised at how much parasite elimination I experienced when I did a dedicated parasite cleanse. So it's something to consider seriously, and addressing your overall health, and everybody should be thinking about it. So
Especially now.
Yeah, especially now. So let's talk about why now. So we have all these parasites that our grandparents and for generations everybody dealt with: worms and flukes, and these worm-based, basically, parasites, and fungus and Candida. And in the wellness world, we've heard about all these things. But tell us more about these new genetically engineered parasites. You mentioned earlier E. coli, genetically engineered E. coli. That they're engineered for antibiotic resistance and shutting off hydrogen peroxide production in the cells. And I also want you to talk about ropeworms.
Yeah. So regarding the what I call the weaponization of the microbiome, specifically the NIH has been working with E. coli and yeast, because they can easily alter the DNA of the microbe, because they don't have a nucleus. So it's really easy to get what we call conjugation, and have, this hybrid species reproduce over and over and over again. So this experimentation has been done. And to be honest with you, I really don't understand the need for an antibiotic resistant, plasmid to be placed, but we know that this has been done. And I can tell you through my own personal experience, I had to eliminate E. coli, to be able to get over this, and you'll pick it up from anywhere. It's in the soil, it's in some of the fertilizer, that you'll purchase, along with polymers and everything else that they're putting in, the chemtrails, God only knows. But it makes it very easy for a microbe such as the E. coli or the yeast to go into our microbiome and completely change it. So there is a bigger agenda out there that a lot of people are unaware of, or maybe they want to ignore. But can you imagine any reason that, we get our immunity from our gut? We get our thoughts from our gut. When you get that gut reaction, that's really your first brain. So And a lot of people don't realize that. So what happens when you have a dysregulation of that? You're chronically sick, and then they can produce the disease for you, and then, give you a cure, right? So, I mean, people really need to think outside of the box regarding the synthetics.
Well,
I don't
so
know.
hang on, just to encapsulate that real quick.
Mhm.
So the medical and the pharmaceutical industry for a long time has been using uh, basically genetically engineered bacteria for pharmaceutical products and for research and development purposes. And now all of that genetically engineered bacteria has sort of populated the earth and us, and it's in all of our microbiomes, and it's constantly being exchanged when people meet each other. These engineered resistant forms, or more toxic forms basically of bacteria.
Yeah. Yeah, it's we're not dealing with grandma's E. coli or grandma's yeast, right? I mean, we're in a completely different time now. And keep in mind too that with just electromagnetic frequencies, these things 5G and above will actually excite E. coli, will
Mm-hmm.
excite the rope, and I call them hybrids, because that's what they are. I mean, I know all over the internet, they're identified as rope worms, but they haven't even really been classified as a parasite. But that's truly, what they are, but they are more of a hybrid. And I just did a talk with Dr. Anna Mihalcea, and I showed a lot of the microscopic images that I have from, people sending samples to me from, everywhere. And not only do they have scales like a snake, I've had people send me samples. They've actually passed snake skin as if it was shedding. So that's
Whoa,
real.
whoa, whoa. So yeah, this ropeworm. What I know about it is it's a newly discovered parasite. If you're in the camp of even considering it a parasite, it wasn't
Yeah.
seen though before like maybe 20 years ago or something. It currently
2013. Yeah.
has no known taxonomy, so it doesn't fit into the animal kingdom anywhere, which is super bizarre. And my understanding too is that it doesn't have any reproductive organs. So
Yes. So
it's not,
here's
ropeworms are not producing other ropeworms. They're coming from where?
they're coming from somewhere. So I had hypothesized, I was looking at some PhD research that they had done in Florida at one point, and kind of going off of what they were finding. And so I used that for a little bit, and then started my own. I have a $55,000 microscope. And, with this research, I never thought, when I left college many, many moons ago, I used to teach college microbiology. And I never thought that, I would be known as you know, the worm lady or the snake lady or whatever. But this research is really important, and it's really disgusting. And I don't love it, like, not at all. But I'm looking at their research, and they had hypothesized that, sometimes these things come out and they have bubbles on them, what appear to be bubbles. And I thought, well, yeah, they do. And the PhDs had said, we're hypothesizing that these are propulsion devices, that that this is how they propel themselves, and this is how they hang on and prevent elimination and peristalsis. I no longer believe that to be true based on my own research. I did, you know, uh, I did a talk with Dr. Mahalcha yesterday, and she's going to air it on Thursday. And I showed some images that have never been seen before. And I have a 3D microscope, and I was able to get and zero in on the actual bubbles. And I was able to find a proboscis, which is like an antenna, where I believe that they actually latch onto, and how they latch onto your body, and why sometimes you might have a little bit of discomfort, or pain whenever they die. So all of this is understandable, and I have some really unique images. I'm happy to actually put them on our Instagram because, again, it is my research, and I think I know how
Yeah,
they're
people need to
possibly.
see that. People need
Thank
to
you.
see this. So this ropeworm, it's beyond what we've just said. When you zoom in on it, it appears to have snake scales. So
Yes.
it doesn't have a skin. It's like a normal worm. And then if you really zoom
No,
in
and I
on
actually
these,
have,
go
yeah, I
ahead.
actually have photography of a spinal column.
Yeah. So this is like so and this may seem so out there, but if you can see this online, you can see the five stages of the ropeworm, and they're it's a bizarre anomaly like in the world. And everybody needs to come to their own conclusions, but it appears to be engineered. Appears to be man-made, and then you're zooming in and looking at these propulsion systems on this ropeworm, and it, it 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 appears like that would be like another feature of it that might be man-made to make it more aggressive,
Yeah.
to make it more
And
hardy and more durable. And I wanted to shine light on this because I didn't believe this either. Okay, I got it with the parasites, and I started doing the cleanse, and I did pass some parasites in the first couple months, but it actually took until the third month of a continuous parasite cleanse that we're going to talk about here really soon here in the end as to some of the solutions
yeah.
that I actually saw a ropeworm myself, and I couldn't believe it at first. And I was the person that when I met you, there was a taboo there. I didn't want to like inspect these things closely,
Yeah.
but you when you're doing parasite cleanse, you get over that real quick because
You do.
you want to see how you're progressing and so forth. So I saw this myself, and then I continued to see it. These things are really scary looking, and when you pass them, you feel spiritually lighter, and you
Yes.
feel energetically lighter after
Huge.
you get rid of these things. Like in them immediately, it's a very interesting experience. It wasn't just a
Yeah.
physical experience for me, and I've heard that and from people I know who are also doing the parasite cleanse. So it's a real serious deal, and there's more research that needs to go into it. But you're posting the images. We're going to link to Abetu Naturals. You're going to post the images there, right? So we'll
Yeah.
link
I'll
to,
post some of those.
yeah,
Yeah. And
we'll
those are the ones
link to
I'm
your
going to share in
Instagram.
Dallas. Yeah. The, it was thought to be, and of course, I look at the basic questions. Why do some of them have these bubbles and some of them don't have bubbles? And so I wasn't satisfied, with the fact that maybe these are propulsion devices. When I zero in on these things microscopically, what I see are, um, I see characteristics of an egg, of honestly, of a reptile egg. I've compared these things. I look at
Wow.
I actually look at the topography, and reptile eggs are soft, and a lot of people don't know that. I dug even deeper because you want to find as much research as you can on these things, and come to find out that there is a specific type of species called sidewinding species, and to go in and dissect them, you actually have bubbles on the ovaries that are called ova. So
Mm.
I thought that
Whoa.
was, I was not
Ooh,
happy
ooh,
to
chills.
find it, but again, that was my way of, I mean, once you lock onto something, I mean, I'm a digger. So I need to know as much as I can about this so that, I can coach people the right way so that I can help develop the things that are going to eliminate these things, because ultimately, we want to increase our vibration. We want, and that starts at the cellular level, right? And like you said, I feel amazing. Everybody who, goes through this and we take through this process, they feel amazing. And the other thing we wanted to do was say, okay, we were using the Cellcore products and they did a good job as long as you were really aggressive, right? Like you said, and we do like a 3 weeks on, 1 week off type of
Mhm.
thing, then maybe you're going to start to get to some of the more resilient ropes and things like that. Well, to be honest with you, um, people hate taking the pills. We want people to be compliant. I mean, you know how many pills we were taking. If you want to
Yeah,
go into the exam.
yeah, and let's talk about the solution. We only have like 10 minutes left, Maria.
Yeah.
So I want to talk now about the solutions
Yeah.
and so I have a protocol that I did that's basically the cell core protocol that you modified and like, customized, so to
Yeah.
speak. But I was taking six para, and the advanced version after a couple months, six para two, six para one, six para one in the morning once a day, six para two, and like six, I don't know, like two bowel movers twice a day.
Yeah.
And then I was drinking that in the carboxy, the humic fulvic acid powder they put in the water, and putting para
Yeah.
three, the tincture, into that
Yeah.
twice a day. So twice or three times a day, I'm like taking stuff. And yes, I have uh, these huge like thing of pills that I'm taking, and I
Yeah.
had to do that every day, for
We
months.
were
And so, uh,
dedicated. Yeah.
which is
We're animals.
dedicated, yeah. And like it was, and I have the discipline for it, and I could see the results, but it is challenging for people, and there's an investment cost there too. So, like, as we look forward into parasite cleanse, we've got new parasites we need to deal with that are engineered. We need new solutions. I know you've been working on something. Is this something that's going to be available for the public?
Yeah, so you're actually lucky. You and I are going to be at the Changing Life and Destiny conference together in
Oh
Dallas
yeah.
next week. So I'm
Uh-huh.
super excited to see you guys.
Yeah.
And then you can meet my ape of a husband, who I adore. Um, he goes through all of this with me. And somebody asked a question: what if he can't swallow pills? The good news is that the cavalry is coming. So we will actually. Dr. Group has he's going to be manufacturing our own mimosa pudica from an organic farm in India. And then we have developed, he's got microsomal, glycerosomal technology. So what we're doing is we're making a bioavailable liquid that's actually really easy to take, along with a bioavailable binder. And in this binder, with all of the before and after microscopic testing that I've been doing, we're trying to actually still get a hold of the nanotechnology, as well as the things that are poisoning us. So we're trying to make sure that we can get kind of an all-in-one that acts as a phenomenal parasitic binder, so we can grab those chemicals that they release, make this process easier, and to make it to where you're only having to take one pill a day. The other part to that is you want to make sure that you're regenerating tissue. I have a tincture formulation that helps with that. Then we also want to make sure that if you have access to an infrared sauna, like through SaunaSpace, I can tell you that I have already posted on Instagram some of the after effects of what happens when we are eliminating the polystyrenes, the microplastics, and the polymers that are poisoning everybody. And I already did put some of those pictures up so that people can see what those look like in urine. You're not going to be able to look at those yourself. I've had people ask me, can I get a microscope and see this? Listen, some of this stuff you're only going to see under fluorescence. I have a
Yeah.
3D
Yeah. Like
microscope.
we didn't have time to talk about it much, but there is the nanotechnology, graphene oxide, quantum dot, hydrogels, these man-made, really tiny polymers that are another parasite, as it were, another thing
Yeah.
that's toxic, that's clogging up our systems. And saunas, it seems like sauna's key for that in general, any sauna. But
Yeah.
I also wanted to add in that there's new research indicating that near-infrared light therapy is antimicrobial. So,
We like our microbes, but some microbes we definitely don't want. And with your technology, with the red, with the UV light, with the combination, being infrared, is huge. And I can show in our urine, after, granted, we're on the binder, we're on, because we're part of the research group, as you are. But I can actually demonstrate for people that what we're doing is working, and we're getting rid of the antennas. Some people call them fibers. They're actually antennas that connect you to the internet. Okay, so they're meant to be multifunctional, and They are red blood cell killers and white blood cell killers. So it's important that
Yeah.
we have
So to clarify that, this nanotechnology that's in the industry and in the medical industry that's now widespread and we're exposed to, these nanoparticles are conductive.
yes.
So can they respond to like a cell phone signal and EMF and 5G and like that, and they do things in the body that are bad for our biology and bad for our health.
We have people with their kidneys all of a sudden. I mean, I've got healthy, people who are friends of mine who all of a sudden they're getting bladder stones, spastic bladders, kidney stones, and things that are absolutely wild. Liver pain, and I'm like, we have to. Okay, first of all, like, let's start detoxing. And a lot of these things, when you think about polymers and you think about microplastics, I've actually seen plastics come out in my stool. These things are everywhere, guys. And, we're exposed to the micelles, the polymers that are in your beauty products, whatever you put on your skin. I actually use like a tallow and, butter type of thing. So, I mean, I try
Natural.
to stay, you know what I mean, as natural as I can. I mean, I'm not into that garbage. Like, if I'm working so hard to try to eliminate, why am I going to just lackadaisical put this garbage all over me?
And and our audience is pretty well pretty aware of like avoiding the chemicals and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But for you, this is what's exciting. So the solution is the uh, a parasite cleanse, which you can go with Cellcore, but there's a new tincture, liquid-based, much easier to take, much more effective product that you've been personally developing with Dr. Group, because that was an earlier question. Dr. Group already has a parasite cleanse product. Well, this is next generation. We're in 2024 now. We got this new thing coming out. It's going to be way better, easier to take. And so you're combining the ingested parasite cleanse protocol with with infrared sauna and light therapy, and you're also using, I believe, a cloud mat, right? You're using the Centropix PEMF.
Cloud. So I use a PEMA, so it's a PEMA device. So what I do, and this is going to be a little bit complicated, and I don't want to like make it too complicated for your audience, but encourage them to watch my video with Dr. Anna Mihalcea next Thursday when it airs. She's got a Substack. It's Mihalcea, and we did unpack a lot of detail. But what happens is, people have been exposed to these polymers or polyethylene glycol and or spider silk. So we don't need to get into that, but I photograph the webbing under the microscope and how it's tethering your red blood cells together. I actually force this reaction because anytime you're around electromagnetic frequencies, this untethering happens and you develop a cloud of polymer, in your interstitial fluid, in your plasma, and your cells are swimming in it. I have experimented and forced this reaction using the cloud mat, the 200 microtesla, because I want to untether my cells, but then I'm left with this glob of either polyethylene glycol, hydrogel, and it's super conductive. So I'm trying to get it into a state where I can actually pass it, and I use and I push with the sauna to do that, and I can prove that they're coming out. So I am forcing, the situation and pushing this, untethering my cells and forcing. People say, where does this come from? Well, we're being sprayed with it. Okay. So
and we don't have much more time.
Everybody has it.
These are the key outtakes here is everybody has parasites. We have new bioengineered parasites that are trickier than ever to deal with, and so the solution and the 2024 new approach, which you're spearheading and on the vanguard of, is to combine parasite cleanse, ingestible parasite cleanse with PMA technology, which is a newer form of PMF. It's by a company, Centropix. They make a cloud mat, and sauna. Yeah. So it's the entourage effect of all three of those things together that's required to keep ourselves healthy in this modern bioweapons age. where we have all this synthetic stuff that we're exposed to, and nanotech and plastics, and of course more heavy metals and regular toxins than ever before.
Yeah. And I'm going to show, you know, I'm going to give this talk in Dallas, and I'm going to save some images for, you know, a first look there in Dallas. But, you know, with this polyethylene glycol, you know, it's very difficult to eliminate whenever it gets to its crystallization form. And, you know, in ResearchGate, everybody talks about how difficult this is, you know, even to just break it down. But I will post this on our Instagram page, and I can show and prove that by doing the things that we're doing, that I will show the crystallization, the crystallized polyethylene glycols actually left the body. And I'll post those pictures as well so that people can see that this is possible. And then I just side note and tell people it is important. I know that you take my Regenesis product. We just were given a diabetic treatment patent for that formulation. So I'm now a diabetic patent holder for that formulation that you have. Some of this gel is dependent on glucose, and it's important that we either, you know, exercise fasting or keep our glucose levels down, and that we're regenerating tissue at the same time. So I have a third generation called InsuLess that's coming out, and that I'm going to unveil in Dallas. That, you know, I'm of course you're going to get a bottle of it. Yeah, it's really amazing. But these are all things that we can focus on elimination, and we're going to win. So
yeah.
that's
so there's one more good thing to add to it beyond the elimination, sauna and the PMA. And of course, natural ancestral practices like getting lots of sunlight and sleeping on time and avoiding blue light. There's some cool stuff you could take to supercharge your nutrient that your nutrients are taking in. And you have these products on a Bay2 Natural, so we'll link to that. And one last thing, I think we have one more day left on our sale. I think it ends tonight, so it's celebrating my birthday. So it's our Founder 40th sale, and folks can use your code. Your code is Maria Crisler. They can stack that on top to get a little more discount on top of the sale that's going on. So just want to remind everybody of that. And
Thank you for that.
Any closing comments? We only have like 30 seconds.
Yeah. So somebody asked about what about EDTA? That's great for heavy metal remediation. Dr. Group produces that EDTA. It's very clean. I have that on our website. So on our website, you know, we try to pull in the things that we know and keep it simple for people, you know, that are working. But again, you know, just practice good habits and focus on elimination and helping your body. You're not in this alone, right? Your body's a super system. So you just have to kind of start cleaning it out so that you get that help, right? You're a partner in this.
Beautiful. Yeah. Everybody, thank you so much for joining Maria. Oh, it's Maria Crisler. It's spelled right in the title, Crisler. Yeah. We'll link to her brand on Instagram at Bay2 Naturals, and she has more information. You can look her up online. She's an amazing, amazing researcher and on the vanguard of all this stuff. Also an amazing person. I'm so grateful that you took the time today. This was a long one, but it was amazing.
Yeah, I love you guys. Thank you. I'm excited to see you next week.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, looking so forward to see you in person. We're going to have a blast at Changing Life and Destiny. So take care. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you again so much, Maria. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Yes, this will be saved.